It's raining, you are in the mountains. You look at the raindrops from the window of a cozy hilltop hotel. That's peace, calm, beauty. Now imagine watching that same raindrop while sitting in a hut down in the valley, the roof leaking, everything getting drenched. Same raindrop, totally different experience. That is exactly how prompts work. The words may look the same, but what they mean, what they do, completely depends on context. Our understanding doesn't come from the words themselves, but from where we stand when we read them. Think about it. A simple "Are you okay?" can sound caring, sarcastic, or suspicious, all based on tone, timing, and what's going on around you. Words are like chameleons. Their meaning shifts with the reader, their perspective, emotion, or experience. They shift again with the model, shaped by what it has seen, learned, and remembered. And finally, they take form through the prompt itself, through structure, phrasing, and intent. That's why prompt engineering is both an art and a science. So let's unpack it. Not just how to write prompts, but how to feel them, test them, and master them. So let's try out some prompts on our favorite GPT models, Gemini and ChatGPT. First, I asked, who won the World Cup? ChatGPT answered quickly. But Gemini bro, he's still thinking. Now, look at the answers. Gemini gave results for the last concluded FIFA World Cup, while ChatGPT did something smarter. It asked for clarification. Which one do you mean? Alright, so let's give our fellas a bit more detail and see what happens. Gemini provided a detailed answer, including the date and even mentioning that it was a major upset. ChatGPT, on the other hand, kept it minimalist. India won, defeating West Indies at Lords. Next, I gave both models an example format in the context. And here is what happened. Gemini bro, still thinking, thinking, and thinking. Both models gave the exact same answer. Did you notice something? When we ask a specific, well structured question, we tend to get similar and consistent answers across models. Earlier, I used to think prompts, they're just plain English. What's there to learn? But after spending time with GenAI models and experimenting with all kinds of prompts, I realized something important. If you master the art of writing prompts, the model will take care of the science behind them. So when your prompt is well structured, the model gives you the right answer in one go. Otherwise, you end up wasting time rephrasing the same question again and again and still not getting what you really wanted. So in this new video series, we will break it all down. We will learn how to write prompts that actually work. And in today's first video, we will explore how to write a good prompt. Understand its structure, learn the different types, and cover some best practices along the way. Now let's extend our experiment. This time I added two examples in the prompt. And again, we got almost identical answers following the same format. Next, I asked the model to think step by step. Gemini started updating the answer step by step, while ChatGPT did all the thinking behind the scenes this time. And as expected, both ended up with the same result. Now let's add a bit of fun to our prompts. I assigned a role and a persona. You are an expert and you are a 25-year-old female to get a Gen Z style answer. And look at the answers now. Oh, 1983, India won from Kapil's heroic innings. It basically made half the country start sleeping with a cricket bat under their pillow. Hmm, not that funny. Turns out humor can't really be taught or trained. Alright, back to the technical details of the game. This time, I changed the persona to a 63-year-old cricket commentator. Experienced, serious, and a little boring. And yep, the answer turned super technical. Now let's see if the model can tell a bedtime story. Ah, yes. So this sounds like a bedtime story, though my daughter would probably kill me if I read her this one. So let's switch to a bedtime poem instead. Well, in London town, on cricket ground. That's more like it, okay? Okay, friends, enough art. Before you sleep, let's wrap this up and move to the science of prompt engineering. We experimented with a bunch of prompts and learned how to make them actually make sense. But now it's time to take this experience and turn into something structured. So you can apply it on any kind of prompt. Let's explore the main components of the prompts. First comes the task, the main question you want to ask. Next is the context, which is just as important as the question itself. It helps the model understand where your question is coming from and what exactly you mean. After context, you define the constraints. For example, you might want the answer in a specific format, like JSON separated by delimiters or written in a particular sentence structure. You can also include examples to guide the model toward the kind of output you expect. Then comes the role, the character or expertise you want the model to adopt while responding. And finally, the persona. This sets the tone or style of the response. For instance, you can ask the model to answer like a 25-year-old content creator or a 63-year-old cricket commentator. The importance of each component is roughly reflected by its size on the screen. Task and context being the largest gears because they derive everything else in your prompt. Now let's dissect our prompt and match it to the main components of prompt engineering. First, we assign the role, easy peasy. Then comes the persona, again, simple to understand. Next is the constraint. The constraints tells the model how it should respond. It defines the rules, boundaries, or format. In my prompt, I have written answer the question using the format in the context. That's a constraint because it's an instruction that restricts how the answer should look. It's like saying, follow this specific structure. I'm not giving you meaning, I'm giving you format. Here's the example. This shows the model what the expected response looks like. Now let's move on to the context. The highlighted portion in yellow. The context provides meaning or background. It helps the model understand what the user expects based on prior examples or narrative. In short, the model uses this part as a reference to answer the next question. And finally, we reach our task, the actual question we want the model to answer. Okay, so now let's move to prompt types. The main ones we will use are zero shot, one shot, few shot, which sometimes called multi-shot as well, chain of thought, role prompting. We use this with the cricket commentator example, and react. So region plus I. Zero shot versus one shot. So zero shot, I don't give any example of the desired output. One shot, I include one example showing the format I want. You can see the difference in responses. The one shot answer matches my expected style because the model can imitate the example. Next, I tried with two examples, both differing slightly in the responses as one has the venue details, the other talks about whether it's their first ever trophy. Few shot helps the model infer style, tone, and level of detail. Now let's look at chain of thought prompting. This is where we ask the model to reason step by step instead of jumping straight to the final answer. It is specifically useful for math problems, logical reasoning, or any complex task that needs to be broken down into smaller parts. For example, I asked the model to calculate the down payment for two houses, both affordable, but I wanted to know which one required more upfront payment. In my prompt, I specifically said, show the answer step by step. And that's exactly what it did. The model explained the logic behind each step, multiplying, comparing, and even clarifying my prompt. I made a small mistake in the question, but it handled it gracefully and assumed that the second house was house B. That's the power of suit. The model doesn't just give you an answer, it shows its reasoning path so you can verify how it got there. Now let's ask another question to the model. How's the weather in Singapore right now? I asked it to provide real-time data. The model responds, it's partly sunny with clouds and might rain. Carry an umbrella. Then I asked whether it used an API or its own data. It tries to roast me, telling me that it doesn't have a weather radar in Marina Bay. So it's fun to interact with the models. It explains how it reasoned through the query. This is a classic React style prompt where the model first reasons about what to do and then acts, fetching or simulating data before responding. Let's move on to some best practices, most of which we have already seen in action. So first, be specific, give clear and detailed instructions. The more detail you provide, the less the AI has to guess. Second, add role and context. Define who the model is and what situation it's responding to makes the answers far more relevant and realistic. Then provide a response format. Specify how you want the output, JSON, bullet points, paragraphs, or a particular structure. That way, you won't have to reformat it later. And number 4, iterate and test. Prompts rarely work perfectly on the first try. Let me repeat. Prompts don't work perfectly fine on the first try. Modify, retry, and observe how the response changes. Keep refining until the output matches what you expect. And finally, probably the most important one, don't forget to save your best prompts because later you will not be able to recreate. So whether it is on your notes, a document, or a developer repository, store them. Each good prompt is your own little piece of intellectual property, your hard work. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. In the next video, we will explore one of the most fascinating questions. How do machines actually understand language? Till then, keep learning and stay curious.